Good morning and welcome to our special coverage entitled Russian Invasion. I'm Ladi Akiriduluale. The headlines. Death toll from shelling of Ukraine's Kharkiv reaches 21 as President Zelensky declares Russia's action as a war crime. U.S. President Joe Biden vows that freedom will triumph over tyranny, tells U.S. Congress that Vladimir Putin miscalculated Western reaction to his invasion of the Ukraine. UN General Assembly set to censure Russia over Ukraine's invasion. At least 21 people have been killed and 112 wounded in the shelling of Ukraine's second most populous city, Kharkiv. However, the governor of the regional state administration says all Russian attacks were repulsed and positions held in spite of heavy bombardment of the city on Tuesday and overnight. Governor Ole Sinagubov said the Russian enemy suffered significant losses, and I'm quoting him there. It is understood Russian troops entered the northeastern and northern sectors of the city as Kharkiv was pummeled overhead by jet artillery. In the United States, President Joe Biden has told the Congress that Vladimir Putin badly misjudged how the West would hit back once he invaded Ukraine. In a primetime speech, Mr. Biden vowed an unwavering resolve that freedom will always triumph over tyranny. Democrats and Republicans reacted to Mr. Biden's appeal to show support for Ukraine by rising in unison to applaud. His State of the Union address came as pandemic-weary Americans grapple with galloping inflation. In an hour-long address to lawmakers, the Democratic president said, quote, Putin's war was premeditated and unprovoked. He rejected repeated efforts at diplomacy, and he thought the West and NATO wouldn't respond. He thought he could divide us here at home.
Together, along with our allies, we are right now enforcing powerful economic sanctions. We're cutting off Russia's largest banks in the international financial system, preventing Russia's central bank from defending the Russian ruble, making Putin's $630 billion war fund worthless. We're choking Russia's access. We're choking Russia's access to technology that will sap its economic strength and weaken its military for years to come. Tonight, I say to the Russian oligarchs and the corrupt leaders who built billions of dollars off this violent regime, no more. The United States, I mean it. The United States Department of Justice is assembling a dedicated task force to go after the crimes of the Russian oligarchs. We're joining with European allies to find and seize their yachts, their luxury apartments, their private jets. We're coming for your ill-begotten gains. And tonight, I'm announcing that we will join our allies in closing off American airspace to all Russian flights, further isolating Russia and adding additional squeeze on their economy. He has no idea what's coming. The ruble has already lost 30% of its value. The Russian stock market has lost 40% of its value, and trading remains suspended. The Russian economy is reeling, and Putin alone is the one to blame. Together with our allies, we're providing support to the Ukrainians in their fight for freedom. Military assistance, economic assistance, humanitarian assistance. We're giving more than $1 billion of direct assistance to Ukraine, and will continue to aid the Ukrainian people as they defend their country and help ease their suffering.
U.S. President Joe Biden addressing the Congress overnight. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has accused Russia of war crimes after it launched airstrikes on the country's second city, Kharkiv. At least 10 people had been killed and more than 35 hurt when an opera house, a concert hall, and government offices were struck in Kharkiv's Freedom Square. Later, Ukraine's military said Russian troops had parachuted into Kharkiv in an effort to capture the besieged city. The military said there were immediate clashes after the paratroopers landed. Earlier on Tuesday, the main TV tower in the capital, Kiev, was also hit, knocking media off air and killing 5 people. Moscow warned residents near Kharkiv's military areas to leave their homes. The explosion sent smoke billowing from the steel structure, but it remains standing. A nearby memorial to victims of the Holocaust was damaged in the same strike. The Babyania Ravine is Europe's largest marked grave of the Holocaust, where more than 70,000 people, mostly Jews, were shot by the Nazis. At home here, the federal government has announced that Air Peace and Max Air will begin the evacuation of Nigerians from the Ukraine today, Wednesday. The Minister of Foreign Affairs, Geoffrey Onyeama, said this during a meeting with the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Femi Gbajabiamila. Mr. Onyeama says the evacuation will be done following the approval of President Muhammadu Buhari. With Ukraine still at war with Russia and a no-fly zone effective across the country, the evacuation is expected to take place from neighboring countries. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs said hundreds of Nigerians had been received in Poland, Hungary, and Romania by Nigerian embassies in those countries. Nigerians have continued to flee the Ukraine after Russia invaded the East European nation last week, Thursday. Talks have commenced between both parties, but fighting has continued in Ukraine's cities. And talking about Ukraine and what is going on there and what is happening with the evacuation, we're being joined by Farida Moheb, who is in Warsaw, Poland. Good morning to you, Farida, and welcome to the program.
Good morning. How are you doing?
Now, you came from the Ukraine to Poland. Tell us, what was the experience like? What was your experience like?
I was actually very lucky to not have experiences like others of my colleagues, but a lot of time when we were trying to move across the borders, we had a lot of difficulties regarding at the Ukrainian side of the border, and we weren't allowing Black people to pass through. It was a lot of wars, a lot of drama at the border side. But back in when it was tough, you are leading inside the war, so it was a lot more like you need to get out. There's a way for us to get out. We're trying we're being stopped by and border. So I just wanted by getting the contact at the embassy at Poland. Putting them they were very helpful with the NSU Nigerian students in Poland. They were very helpful, and they assisted with.
My apologies, Farida. The audio of the connection is not up to scratch. We'll take a break and we'll see if we can work on that and yet get back to you on the other side of that break. Please stay on with us. Welcome back. We're working on the connections to some of our guests at this time. But some of America's best-known companies, including Apple, Google, Ford, Harley-Davidson, and ExxonMobil, have rejected Russia for its invasion of Ukraine under steady pressure from investors and consumers who are decrying the violence. Apple Incorporated late yesterday said it had stopped sales of iPhones and other products in Russia, adding that it was making changes to its Maps app to protect civilians in the Ukraine. Tech firms, including Alphabet Inc., that's Google's parent company, dropped Russian state publishers from the news, and Ford Motors, with 3 joint venture factories in Russia, told its Russian manufacturing partners it was suspending operations in the country. Motorcycle maker Harley-Davidson suspended shipment of its bikes. ExxonMobil said it would discontinue operations in Russia and was taking steps to exit the Sakhalin First venture, following the steps of British energy giants Shell and BP, which is Russia's biggest foreign investor. The UN General Assembly is set to censure Russia over its Ukraine invasion. A firm reprimand is expected today over its invasion of the country, designed to get Moscow to stop fighting and withdraw its military forces. If this scales through the United Nations, it would diplomatically isolate Russia within the world body. By Tuesday evening, nearly half the 193-member General Assembly had signed on as co-sponsors of a draft resolution ahead of a vote today, according to diplomats. The text deplores Russia's aggression against Ukraine. It is similar to a draft resolution vetoed by Russia in the 15-member Security Council on Friday. No country has a veto in the General Assembly, and Western diplomats expect the resolution, which needs two-thirds support, to be adopted. While General Assembly resolutions are non-binding, they carry political weight. The draft text demands that the Russian Federation immediately, completely and unconditionally withdraw all of its military forces from the territory of Ukraine within its internationally recognized borders. Dozens of states are expected to formally abstain from the vote or not engage at all. In two votes by the 15-member UN Security Council on the Ukraine crisis in the past week, China, India, and the United Arab Emirates abstained. We've established connection with yet another Nigerian, this time in Hungary. That's Temitayo Kolawole. Temitayo, nice to see you. You do look a bit stressed and tired out. What's been the experience so far to get you to Hungary? How did you make the move from Ukraine to Hungary?
Honestly, it hasn't been easy. I spent about almost 24 hours on the road to get to the border itself. And even after getting to the border, we still had to take like additional hours to get to a place where we can sleep. So totally, I spent like 2 days on the road before I finally was able to rest. And I know I slept for almost 7 hours straight because I was that tired.
Where did you start out from in the Ukraine? Where were you based in the Ukraine?
Okay, so I was at Zaporozhye. From Zaporozhye, I had to take a train. It was free, evacuation train to Lviv, and then from there I had to take another train to Uzhgorod. From there, we kind of chartered a bus that was going to take us straight into Hungary.
When you say we, that meant you weren't alone. There were several others with you.
Of course, yes. In my bus were like 50 African students.
Not just Nigerians.
We're all Nigerians actually in this bus, but there were some others that had gone with the train. There were some Ghanaians. Okay, I think there were some people from Benin, if I'm not mistaken. Also, there are people from Africa, basically.
What was your experience like at the border?
The border. That is another story entirely, because when we got to the... Okay, so there were different borders. There was one that we had to go from Ukraine itself, that's you're checking out. And when we got to that border, that was where we spent the longest amount of time, almost the whole day, because they were checking cars and also checking buses. There were like 12 buses in front of us taking students out of Ukraine. So we spent a good amount of time there before we're even able to leave Ukraine itself. So, it was...
But when you say they searched, when you say they were going through the buses, did they tell you what they were looking for, what they wanted to check? What were they checking?
You have to have your passport, and they had to make sure that, because there were some Ukrainian men that they left their family to go and fight this war. That was a very emotional moment. So you had to have your passport. They had to be sure that you were not taking some guns or knives or some dangerous weapons out of the country into another country. So yeah, that's what they were checking for, basically.
Now, when you left the border exiting Ukraine and you then got to the Hungarian side? I presume, of course, after you left the Ukrainian side, you got to the Hungarian side. What was the reception like?
It was okay. It was quite welcoming. I think I will just start word because I know where we got to. I don't really know the names of the cities. Quite confusing to know these names. So when we got to one particular city like that, we're going to take a train, and I know that they offered to give us this train ticket for free. Like I mean, given a good amount of people, like 50 free train tickets. That's really good from a country that does not even know who you are or where you're coming from. So
did you meet Nigerians? Were officials of Nigeria at any point at the border to receive you, to arrange for your movement from the border to areas? Because that was going to be my next question, but I wanted you to answer this first before I get to that, because evacuations are supposed to start today, and Hungary is one of the places that we are told that, you know, will eventually witness some evacuation.
yeah, so from other students, actually, I heard from them that the embassy actually helped them to get a place that they can rest and freshen up. But for me, right from time when I sent an email to the Nigerian embassy, that was when the Nigerian embassy in Romania, I didn't get any reply. I had to take matters into my own hands to do something to evacuate myself. So I don't know for other people. I know about some that they help to get a place so that they can freshen up. But for me, no, it didn't go as planned.
One of the things that we have heard, you know, since this crisis began last week, is the fact that those of you who are students, if you leave, the chances that you'll be able to come back are very slim. Were you told that? And if so, what arrangements or what assurances did you get before you left? Did your school or the institution you were in, were they there? Were they there for you? Did they give you any information?
No, even till now, we still not heard anything from them. But there was a post going around that says there's every possibility that we'll be moved to Polish University. We're not really sure about that. But for now, when it comes to my school giving me information about how my studies is going to go on, there's no news. There's nothing. We've not heard anything from them. We're still waiting for their feedback. The only information we got from them that I can remember is when they said we can get some psychological help or speak to a therapist for those that were in close contact to this whole event. So, yes.
Now, let's come to the evacuation itself. Now that you are, where are you in Hungary, by the way?
I'm in a city. Like I said, I don't really know how to pronounce the names of the city, but I'm in a city that is quite close to the Romanian border.
Okay. So I'm assuming, therefore, that you are not likely to be evacuated out of Hungary back to Nigeria today.
No.
Do you have any information about how that process is going to happen? I've asked you already, you said nobody from the Nigerian embassy has been in touch yet.
Yes.
But is there any way that you are going to be able to get in touch with them, or they can get in touch with you? Is there anybody who's doing anything to coordinate information so that those of you who moved into Hungary are able to also benefit from this evacuation?
Okay, so I'm actually hearing a lot of stories when it comes to this evacuation thing, and some of them are actually quite discerning, because there was one particular one that they said if you're going to be evacuated from Hungary or Romania, there's some that are saying that it's free, that you just have to go and meet them at the embassy. So yeah, at the embassy here in Hungary, and fill your name and everything, and you'll be evacuated for free. And there are some that are saying that you still have to pay. So we still don't know which of the information is true and which one is false. But there are some
Let me
people that
ask
I
you
know
then.
that they just
let me
Okay.
ask you, I'm sorry to interrupt, but let me ask you, because from what you've said now, where you are is very close to the Hungarian border, and I'm assuming that means that it is some distance from Budapest, which is the capital of Hungary.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
do you have plans of leaving there at some point to go to Budapest and contact the Nigerian embassy and see what exactly is really happening so that you are safer there, and of course all this information that you probably need can be provided?
Okay. Right from the moment when I sent the email and they didn't give me a reply, I actually lost hope in Nigerian embassy. I'm sorry to say, because it feels like I said, there are lots of stories that are going around. There was one Twitter post I saw from our president that was saying, if we had the money to go there, that we should have the money also to evacuate ourselves. And I was like really, really shocked. So I
No,
don't really
I
know
don't
what's
think,
the
I'm sorry again to interrupt, but
yeah,
I don't think our
yeah.
president said that. The president didn't say that. In fact, what was
Okay.
said is that the president approved money for flights to go and
Mm-hmm.
evacuate you, the students, from the places where
Okay.
it's possible to do so. So I can tell you right away that it isn't true that the president said that.
Okay. Yeah, like I said, there are lots of rumors going around. We don't know which of the story is true or which one is not true. But the embassy has still not replied me. Uh, I was in Budapest actually yesterday, although I didn't go to the Nigerian embassy because I don't have any plans yet of going there. I still want to figure out how my schooling is going to be, if truly they are going to transfer us to other schools here around. That's either Hungary, Romania, or Polish or Poland, whichever one they're going to transfer us to. So I need to figure that out first before I even think of traveling. So I don't have any plans of going to the Nigerian embassy for now.
Have you
I
been
still
in,
want to.
have you been in contact with your family?
Yes, yes, I have.
So they know that
I
you're
have.
safe and they know where you are and all of that?
Yes.
Well, from what you've said so far, what I can surmise is that you're not yet very anxious to return to Nigeria. You want to sort out the academic pursuit that took you there first and know in which direction it is going before you leave, if you are going to leave.
Yes.
But the question, therefore, is, you said you have not heard from your school in the Ukraine. They haven't really given you much information, and now you're no longer there. Ukraine is on a war footing. You're now in a neighboring country. How long do you presume it would take for you to get the necessary information, for you to make the decision you need to make, and decide one way or the other whether you're coming home or whether you're staying back and you're going to be in another country?
To be honest, I don't know. I don't know. My fingers are crossed that they would give a reply very soon and we can know what is going on, what we are going to do. But if I tell you that I have an exact answer of how things are going to be, I really do not. I do not have that exact answer. I can't say this is how it's going to go this way. It's going to be a straight road. No, I don't have such reply for that.
I would want to also ask you, how are you keeping yourself going? Because some of the stories we've heard from Nigerian students talk about the difficulty of being able to access money, the cost of transactions and the use of cards, and what they faced in even, I mean, back in Ukraine, of course, what they faced is even getting supplies. But of course, all that doesn't apply where you are now, but what's been the situation with how you're able to sustain yourself and keep yourself going, feeding, clothing, and all of that, and of course, your safety?
To be honest, is not easy. But I know that there are some cards that we got from Ukraine that can still be used here. Like the hotel I'm staying in right now, it was a free accommodation for those that left Ukraine. So that's actually a good part. And when it comes to feeding, I've not been able to eat anything since yesterday, and that's not because I don't have the money to get the food, but just I'm still a bit shaken up with the whole events that I don't feel hungry. But when it comes to other people like my people in Poland, I know that there's some students that are rising up to even make transfer, make funds available so that they can get foodstuffs for this ones. But I was checking some Instagram posts yesterday, and I was really amazed that we African students are rising up to cater for ourselves. So yeah, that's all I can say. For me, I'm still on a 50-50. I have some funds available for me, but I can't say the same for other students. I know it's very hard to get some things here because of the money difference. But for Hungary, I think Hungary, their finances are quite better. For Poland, I know Poland people have really been complaining that it's really expensive for them. So I can't give a definite answer for that. I can only say from my own point of view.
Just before you joined me in this conversation, you were quite emotional. You were, shall I say, on the verge of tears. In fact, we had to delay slightly before bringing you on. Do you want to tell us what that was about? Why were you so emotional? Is it that you're missing home, or you just completed a call with people from home?
I would say I'm just overwhelmed by the love I'm receiving from my family. From I don't just have families back at home in Nigeria. I have also in some parts of the world. So I'm quite overwhelmed from the love I'm receiving from them, from friends back at home. Checking up and just wanted to see how I'm doing. Even before I came online, I received a call from my sister, and she was, really, really, she was getting emotional at one point. But I was just waking up from sleep, so I was just in between. But yeah, that's how it is. And I'm still, like I said, I'm still a bit shaking with this whole thing. I know I woke up, even with the old 7 hours sleep, I woke up in between every hour, just trying to make sure that I'm still alive. And trying to remember hearing the alarm to run to the shelter. It's it's
We can
really,
only
really, it's a lot.
we really can only wish you the very best. Congratulations, because you've reached Hungary and safety. While you make your decisions, stay safe out there, and I'm sure that in the course of time we will come back to you to see how you're faring, and if any of the situations you've described have changed. Temitayo Kolawole, thank you so much for speaking with us this morning, and best of luck.
Thank you very much.
Well, it's not only Nigerians who are trying to get out of Ukraine. The Chinese embassy in Ukraine is making all-out efforts to evacuate its nationals from the country as the situation continues to deteriorate, saying that no one will be left behind in predicaments. The embassy had said that the first group of Chinese students had departed from Kiev University. They traveled by bus to neighboring Moldova under an embassy escort and local police protection. The embassy also said another 1,000 Chinese nationals will leave Ukraine subsequently. Mr. Ding Zhengwei, Chancellor at the Chinese embassy, had explained that evacuation process, or had explained that evacuation process in an interview with Chinese Central Television yesterday. According to Mr. Ding, the embassy has opened a multi-channel evacuation plan to ensure the safety of everyone of its citizens. As a massive Russian convoy rumbles towards the Ukrainian capital, Kiev, the United Nations says more than 660,000 refugees have fled to neighboring countries since Russian President Vladimir Putin launched what he called a special military operation last week, Thursday. At the Medyka crossing on Sunday, that's Poland's busiest crossing, along its roughly 500-kilometer border with Ukraine, people stood in freezing temperatures as they waited to check into a reception center. New arrivals continued to pour across Central European border crossings with news of fierce fighting, civilian deaths, and the massive Russian convoy stoking worries for those fleeing the war.
whatever they need me. So like yesterday I've been segregation the clothes. I was translated. I was mind the kids. I tried to find the clothes for the people. So everything today I'm working on working help. I help with the food. Try to a little bit also segregate for the border. Something is going to the border. Something is going to the other places to help the other people. Another, like you say, it's a people eat over here, just like that. Children want to sweep, children want everything. Prepare the food, clean up, multifunction.
The United Nations and humanitarian partners have launched a $1.7 billion flash appeal to urgently help people displaced by the Russian military offensive inside Ukraine and beyond its borders. The escalating conflict has triggered an immediate and steep rise in humanitarian needs as essential supplies and services have been disrupted while civilians flee the fighting. Speaking in Geneva, UN Emergency Relief Chief Martin Griffiths explained that the appeal has two components: a 3-month flash appeal for the situation inside the country and a regional response plan for the situation beyond Ukraine's borders.
Today we're launching a humanitarian appeal for the Ukraine crisis with two components: a 3-month flash appeal for the situation inside the country, which I have been coordinating, and a regional response plan for the situation beyond Ukraine's borders. The flash appeal for response inside Ukraine, which I'm responsible for coordinating, will need $1.1 billion in funding for 3 months to help 6 million of the most vulnerable in Ukraine for that 3 months. And of those 6 million, we calculate over 1 million will be internally displaced.
We have a fairly good picture of the initial needs for the first few months, $550 million. This is what we're appealing for today. This is UNHCR and 12 partner agencies. The numbers that we are beginning to see are extremely worrying. Last night at the Security Council, I reported 520,000 refugees. Now, less than 24 hours before, the latest figure, I just got it, is 677,000. So another 150,000 added in less than 24 hours. I don't have the detailed breakdown of the 677, but about half are in Poland. This is the country that is clearly, as we predicted, receiving most refugees. About 90,000, probably a little bit more, forgive me if the figures are a bit fluid, have gone to Hungary, almost 60,000 to Moldova, almost 50,000 to Slovakia, and almost, or I would say by now, 40,000 in Romania. There should be absolutely no discrimination between Ukrainians and non-Ukrainians, Europeans and non-Europeans. Everybody is fleeing from the same risks. UNHCR has already received more than $40 million in private contributions from individuals or companies. This is unprecedented. I've never seen it, and I think it's positive.
Military analysts at the US-based Institute for the Study of War have pushed out their latest assessment of Russia's campaign. Here are some of the key takeaways. In Kiev, the Ukrainian capital, it remains Moscow's main war operation. Russia is setting up conditions to encircle the capital with advances from the east and west of the city. Analysts believe the 64-kilometer-long convoy still north of the city is there to support an attack from the west. And then there's Kharkiv, where shelling and aerial bombardments continue. Analysts believe Russia is launching an aerial attack first before it goes in with a renewed ground offensive either today or tomorrow. In the south, Russian forces are aiming to shore up their seizure of Kherson, which could clear the way for renewed drives onto Odessa and Mykolaiv, which would knock out Ukraine's port access. They are also lining up troops to encircle Mariupol to the east, which would create a land bridge for Russian forces to travel freely between the Russian mainland and Crimea. Meanwhile, the United Nations says at least 136 civilians have been killed since the Russian invasion of Ukraine began last Thursday. 13 children are believed to be among the dead. But Liz Trussell, a spokesperson for the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, says the real death toll is likely to be much higher, as most of the casualties are as a result of heavy artillery shelling, airstrikes, and other wide-impact explosives. The UN also says about 400 people have been injured in the fighting so far. Figures released by Ukraine's government suggest as many as 352 civilians are dead and 1,684 are injured. Really sobering statistics. We'll take a break. When we come back, we'll have more stories on the Russian invasion of Ukraine and its worldwide impact. Please stay on with us. Welcome back. Thanks for staying tuned. World Athletics has joined a growing list of sporting bodies to ban Russian and Belarusian athletes, while tennis governing bodies have barred players from competing under the name or flag of either country following Russia's invasion of the Ukraine. Since the start of what Russian President Vladimir Putin calls a special military operation last week, Russian and Belarusian teams and athletes have found themselves frozen out of international competitions across sport. Belarus has been a key staging area for Russia's invasion. On Monday, the International Olympic Committee's executive board recommended sports federations ban Russian and Belarusian athletes and officials from competing. Thomas Tuchel has pleaded for the media to stop asking him about Roman Abramovich as Parliament hears the Chelsea owner is hastily seeking to sell his UK properties. A visibly moved Tuchel asked reporters to stop asking him questions about the war in Ukraine, saying the situation is horrible. Labour MP Chris Brandt used parliamentary privilege to reveal that Mr. Abramovich is selling his UK home, telling the House of Commons the Russian billionaire is terrified of being sanctioned.
Me as a coach and in charge of the first team, that decision does not change too much in the daily business, because I'm in a daily exchange with Petr Cech, and I'm in a very regular exchange with Marina about how to improve the first team. And this will not stop because they stay in charge. So on a daily basis, it will not change too much for me, I guess. You know, you always start the question with the same sentence. Yeah, we know there are much more important things than football, but like, can you comment? But you decide also to ask me about war, and how often do I need to say it? It's horrible. Of course, it's horrible. No, listen, you have to stop. I'm not a politician. You have to stop, honestly. I can only repeat it, and I even feel bad to repeat it because I never experienced war. So even to talk about it, I feel bad because I'm very privileged. I sit here in peace and I do the best I can, but you have to stop asking me these questions. I have no answers for you.
Shakhtar Donetsk have evacuated their Brazilian players to Romania following Russia's invasion of the Ukraine. The Ukrainian Premier League club worked with UEFA to move 12 players away from the conflict, which continues to escalate across the country. Shakhtar Donetsk said Dynamo Kiev and SK Dnipro have also managed to move foreign players from Ukraine. The club commended the Ukrainian Football Association and the Moldovan Football Federation for their assistance. Lokomotiv Moscow coach Markus Gisdol has resigned from his position at the Russian Premier League side in protest against Russia's war with Ukraine, although the club insists he had in fact been sacked. In a statement published by German newspaper Bild, Gisdol said he had been forced to act, having witnessed what is going on in the Ukraine. Gisdol had been in charge for 12 matches. The move comes a day after FIFA and UEFA jointly suspended Russian teams from all international football meaning Spartak Moscow, Russia's only side left in European competition, will no longer compete in the Europa League. Tyson Fury has praised Vladimir Klitschko and Vitaly Klitschko and Alexander Usyk for defending Ukraine from Vladimir Putin's invasion by Russia. Speaking in his pre-fight press conference for his WBC World Heavyweight clash against Dillian Whyte, Fury paid tribute to the Ukrainian stars, saying he would be the first one to join up if England gets involved. Despite making millions from their success in the ring, all three have refused to hide behind their wealth and stay out of the firing line in their mother country.
Fantastic, you know. I'll be the first one to join up if England get involved, or America. I'll be first in line for the job. My dad will as well, and all the boys will all be signing up to defend. So that's what I got to say. I think if you're from that country, living there, defend her. Love your woman and fight for your country. That's what I say.
NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg has called on Russia to end the war in Ukraine and withdraw its forces. Mr. Stoltenberg made the comments during a joint news conference with President Andrzej Duda at Poland's Lutsk air base. He added that while the alliance will support Ukraine in other ways, it would not send troops or combat jets, as it does not want to become part of the conflict.
Putin's war affects us all, and NATO allies will always stand together to defend and protect each other. And at this airbase, we see allied solidarity in action. Fighter jets from the United States are flying alongside the Polish Air Force, keeping NATO skies safe 24/7. NATO is a defensive alliance. We do not seek conflict with Russia. Russia must immediately stop the war, pull out all its forces from Ukraine, and engage in good faith in diplomatic efforts. The world stands with Ukraine in calling for peace.
Mówiliśmy o tym, że Sojusz Północnoatlantycki, cała nasza wspólnota musi utrzymać jedność i absolutnie musimy stać razem przy Ukrainie, bo nie możemy zgadzać się na to, by okupowane, napadane.
All right, and just before we go, business is another area that's been affected by the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Joining me is Ini John Mekwa. Ini, Business Morning, Business Incorporated, yes. Heavy on this thing and yes, the aftermath.
I mean, when we talk about economic sanctions on Russia, we know that it's one world at the end of the day. Everything is global. It's a global village. So, for instance, Russia is a major producer of oil. So, by the time you take, I think they produce about 8% supply export of oil. So, by the time you take away 8% from the price, from the supply of oil, then you can expect that the supply has gone down, which is why yesterday we saw oil hit up to $106. This morning it's about $111. You know, so when you take away that and you expect that the price will be affected, Nigeria having its major stay in oil obviously is affected. The only sad thing is Nigeria has not been able to cash in on that, because this would have been a very good time for Nigeria, even though we have $65 in our budget for the year. I mean, if we're making about $100, that's extra.
That could have gone into our reserves to push in.
Exactly, and dealt with the issue that we need for funding of the budget to reduce our debt servicing and all that, and even the extra 3 trillion naira that is needed. But unfortunately, we're not cashing in on that at this time because of our production. We're not able to meet up with our quota. Also, the other side of it is it's a good and bad news for Nigeria, because there's also the higher subsidy. The higher the price, the global space,
absolutely,
the higher we pay for subsidy, the more we have, maybe the 3 trillion naira that is being required for subsidy may not even be able to cover it.
Yes, depending on how long this goes on for.
Exactly, depending on how long this goes on for. Although some major governments have said they're going to, bring out their reserves, like the US and some other government, but we don't see it having a lasting effect, except things go back to normal. So that's one part of it. Of course, we also have the other part of it, the wheat, the flour, a staple food that will be affected, because even though some producers say we get our supply from Canada when it comes to wheat, but the truth is, once again, the global space is, the supply in the global space is reduced. So that means more people go to one market, and then the price there goes up.
The price will be affected.
Exactly. And of course, it increases our import bill again, which is not very good times in the world at this time.
Not very good. Of course, if you want to hear more about what Ini and I have been discussing, do join us for Business Morning, which kicks off in just a few minutes. Ladi Williams will be on that show, and then Ini herself will be on Business Incorporated later on in the afternoon. So.
Yes, for Business Incorporated especially, we're going to look at, we're not just looking at Nigeria. Kenya is a major importer of wheat from Russia, and this is having a major effect on their manufacturing sector, so we'll focus on that also.
Of course, and or whatever lessons there are for us to also pick from
exactly.
that. We'll also pick. Thank you very much, Ini.
Thank you.
And that's how we're going to wrap it up on our Russian invasion this morning. There'll be another package of the program later on in the day at 5 o'clock, and this show will be back tomorrow at 9 in the morning. I'm Ladi Akeredoluwale. Thanks for being with us, and do have yourselves a pleasant day ahead.